Hello and welcome to the Australian National Road Series on Zwift. I'm Matthew Keenan, joined by Riana Crehan. And Riana, this is another Saturday in the Pain Cave for race number 4 in the National Road Series. And it is a brutal race that they've got in front of them today.
Yeah, good morning, Matt. Great to be here this morning. Absolutely. Like you said, another really tough, grueling morning ahead for these ladies and men to join us a little bit later on this morning. It is a course around the Richmond course, the UCI course. It is the course in reverse. They've got a tough morning ahead.
We've got the women up first, followed by the men. It's 2 laps around the Richmond course. As Riana said, it's the reverse. So the climbing comes early. So I expect it to be a really aggressive start. In the women's series, we've got a commanding lead for Bree Wilson. On the men's side of things, which we'll get to later on with Pat Shaw, it's much tighter at the top of the general classification. Bree Wilson currently leads ahead of Justine Barrow, and her advantage is 42 seconds over her teammate. So it is the rock salt attacker riders at the top of the overall standings. Next best in third position at just under 1 minute behind is Nicole Frame, followed then by Vicky Whitelaw. Bree Vine, who's been so good as well as the leader of the SRAM Send It series, is in 5th position. Bree Hargrave in 6th position. Elisa Politis is in 7th spot, followed by Chelsea Holmes, Taryn Heather, and then it's Jenny Pentonen rounding out the top 10. Riana, in this one, Bree Wilson, in the previous race, which was 2 weeks ago, 6 races. This is race number 4, so we're at the halfway mark. She was second on the stage, but the winner of the stage, Hailey Fuller, she's not a contender in the overall standings because of a technical problem that she had in one of the earlier races. But it was a brilliant performance by young Hailey Fuller of the Staminade team, the Sydney Uni Staminade team, which is a really impressive outfit. They're about to roll out. That's a team that we'll be looking for today.
Yeah, they've been really strong so far in this series, that Staminade team. They've really been at the front of this series so far in all of the races we've seen. So I think they'll be a really strong team again in this week's race, as we see the girls just rolling out to commence this pretty long, tough, grueling race around this Richmond course. They've got 2 laps of the course, 32.6 kilometres in total, about 314 metres of elevation, but they've got some climbs to contend with and a couple of climbs that have got some serious gradients as well in there. So it's certainly going to be a tough morning ahead for the ladies. A long race, some pretty serious undulation they've got to unfold. So it's going to be a bit of tactical race. We're going to have to conserve throughout parts of the race as well, Matt. And these girls are going to have to work together in their teams to ensure that they don't burn out too early in these climbs as we head off to this long, grueling, nearly 40-kilometre race.
And we've seen a pretty quick start because the course, as you mentioned, it's Richmond, the World Championships, where Peter Sagan famously won the first of his 3 world titles, but it is the course in reverse. So it's a relatively new course on the Zwift format. The climbing coming early. And good to see those of you joining the conversation on Zwift Community Live. And the first post, Riana, is for our man, Nathan Guerra. As Michael has made the comment, Nathan, you are rock and roll. And he's right. Nathan is making it all happen back of house.
Yeah, absolutely does a stellar job for us and running, of course, the Zwift Community Live page, making sure that everyone can join in, follow along, cheer these girls and these guys while they are working really hard, nice and bright on a Saturday morning to get the job done for this National Road Series. Of course, they're taking part in this Zwift event while we are unable to be enjoying some real life racing, but this is pretty close to real life racing, Matt. These ladies, they take this very seriously.
It's real life heart rate, it's real life lactic acid, and it's real life pain. That much we do know. Throughout the event today, we'll be able to go into the pain cave of both Jay Vine and Bree Vine. Bree Vine, she finally got a win on Tuesday night, Riana, as she managed to collect victory in the SRAM Send It series. She leads that series overall, but here she's in 5th position. She's 1 minute and 6 seconds behind the series leader, Bree Wilson. So we've still got 2 races to go after this one. She'll be super keen to make an impact today. As they hit the first climb, the grading is 11%, but it's the series leader, Bree Wilson, who is at the front controlling affairs.
Yeah, not much time to get warmed up. They are straight into that climbing. As you said, 11%, just 2 kilometres into the start of this race. But we did see the ladies in the pen. They've been sitting in that pen, warming themselves up for about half an hour. So they have got plenty of warmth in those legs as we jump into the house of Bree and Jay Vine. So we're just looking at Bree Vine there, her husband sitting alongside her. So it's really great that we have the ability to go into the home of these 2 cyclists. Very, very cool.
Hashtag the Vine Show. Bree Vine gets over the top of the climb and into the tuck position. She's been joined by the series leader, Bree Wilson, and we also have Bree Hargrave, and a really select group already off the front. And there's even some riders at the head of the race whose name isn't Aunt Bree. Just had a little bit of a freeze there in the coverage, but we have a new Queen of the Mountains for Bree Vine as she's gone over the top of that first climb in the leading position. And now onto the next climb. The gradient's still underneath that double-digit figure. So we're seeing a few riders being able to rejoin at the back of the group. And the name of Vicky Whitelaw, so consistent, she's towards the front. Riana, she sits in 4th position in the overall standings. She's 1 minute and 1 second behind the series leader, Bree Wilson.
Yeah, and I've been following Vicky Whitelaw on social media. She's been doing some really awesome things, particularly if you're new to cycling or if you're looking for some tips with your cycling, or if you're sort of, just looking for someone to follow along as a bit of a mentor. She's been giving some nutrition tips, some hydration tips, or just some general tips for, your overall health and fitness. And it's been really cool to follow along. She's doing these little mini blogs on her Instagram page. And I think that's really impressive that someone with her caliber, what she's done in her years of cycling and her years of an athlete, and being able to pass those tips on to people through her social media pages. So really cool to see what she's been passing on to fellow athletes.
And she is the tip, speaking of which, of Kieran Lewis to win the race today. He's picked her as the favourite to win. To answer the question from Kathleen Labar, the distance of the race today, it's 2 laps around the Richmond circuit, so it's 32 kilometres of racing today. They've gone over the early climbs. They're descending now across the cobblestones, which were made famous by Peter Sagan back in 2015 when he won the first of his 3 world championships. This group has swelled once again, so all that pressure by Bree Vine up the climb, it has started to come back together once again. Seen a couple of power-ups being used as well, trying to recuperate after that brutal climbing early in the race.
And we've got all the Brees once again sitting up the front. We spoke about this the other night. At the moment, you must need to have the name Bree to be able to be sitting up the front of this cycling pack. It seems to be the name of the moment throughout the series of both the SRAM and the NRS series. Very popular name for these girls at the front, the name Bree. They're all doing very, very well.
They are. We now move a little bit further back down the road. Justine Barrow at 18 seconds behind. So Justine Barrow, who's normally somebody that climbs brilliantly and is a rider that you expect to be right in the thick of the action, has been a little bit quiet throughout the first part of the race, but perhaps the second time up the climb, we'll see a bit more action from Justine Barrow. In terms of the overall standings, Justine Barrow is in 2nd position overall. She's 42 seconds behind her teammate, Bree Wilson, who leads the series.
And they're just over 5 kilometres into this race. As we said, it is a 32.6 kilometre race, about 314 metres of elevation. They've gone up a couple of those little climbs just early in the race. Quite a lot of the climbs are early in the race. It does flatten out towards the end as we just get over another little pinch here, just a smaller pinch compared to the ones we saw earlier. And the girls are really working quite hard, going at just under 40 kilometres an hour at the moment.
And you'll note the very popular Nicole Frame is up towards the front. She's been so active in both this series, and we've spoken about her a lot, Riana, on Tuesday nights with the SRAM Send It series. She's been really popular also on social media.
Yeah, the girls have all had really good support throughout social media, which is really nice to see. Obviously, things are very quiet at the moment with everything that's happening in the world. There's not a lot of sporting events happening, obviously, no cycling events happening. And so it's really been great that so many people have come on board. Everyone has supported these Zwift races, both the SRAM series and, of course, the National Road series. And everyone has really got on board. They've really bought into the series. Everyone's taking it incredibly seriously. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to be on the podium. And the support throughout the community, both with the professional athletes and the community of the amateurs like myself, has been really impressive.
Here's Nicole Frame once again. And as we spoke about before going live, the great thing about this format is that ability to be able to make the comparisons between what you can do on Zwift and then what the elite athletes do. And these riders that we're seeing in this National Road Series, a lot of them are just one step away from going up towards the World Tour. And we see a few of the young riders in particular, Hailey Fuller, who won the previous stage 2 weekends ago. She dominated the under-19s at the National Championships earlier on this season. I'm sure that we'll be talking about her at World Tour level in a few years to come. She's still a bit young for that right now, but with time and the guidance of Vicky Whitelaw, who you've spoken about, she's on the right path.
Yeah, what an incredibly impressive athlete. She's such a young girl. She's only, I think, 17 years of age, already really impressed amongst, her competitors at such an early age and doing some really impressive things. And I think her father might have been a cyclist, and she started very, very young, and already a National Junior Road Series winner. And I think, she's obviously going to be an athlete to watch in the coming years. And very impressive to see her take that victory in the last series in week 3. And she's going to certainly be one to watch.
Another youngster in this group for the Rock Salt Attacker team is Francesca Sewell, who was the dominant rider the previous year at the National Championships in the under-19s, and she's still an under-19 rider this year. She's a Queenslander, Francesca Sewell, and I've always thought, Riana, that it's a big advantage racing on Zwift if you're from the southern states. It just lends itself to spending more time in the garage in the pain cave. Now, you guys get to go outside all the time with the good weather.
Well, exactly right. I mean, we are very blessed in Queensland. I always think that if you're an athlete, you'd want to be training up north where the sun is shining more often than not. I think it would be very difficult to be an athlete in the southern states, but there's lots of very good athletes that do come from the southern states, and a lot of these girls are living in Sydney, or originally from the south coast. So I think if you've got the commitment, you can do it anywhere.
Francesca Sewell, focusing on her at the moment. She's a rider who I think has got a pretty big future based predominantly on her attitude. She's got a great attitude, bounces back from disappointment really quickly, which she did at this year's National Championships. She went in as the defending champion. She didn't quite manage to defend those titles. It was Hailey Fuller who got the better of her, but she bounces straight back. She's racing now online and showing herself at the front once again in the National Road Series. They've covered 8 kilometres of the 32 Ks today, 2 laps around this Richmond circuit. The leader of the series overall, Bree Wilson, she is at the front of the race. She's contending pretty well at the head of the standings. In terms of the team classification, though, it's Sydney Uni Staminade who lead. Team Aero, they're in second position. It's relatively tight in the team's classification. It's just a 30-second advantage for Sydney Uni Staminade over Team Aero. But, Riana, Sydney Uni Staminade is a team that's caught both of our attention because of the age gap between the riders. It's as if it's a team full of masters and apprentices.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this just before. They've got a great group of very young girls, and I'm incredibly impressed at just how young some of their team are, and just how committed they are to their unique passion that they have for what they're doing with their cycling. A lot of the girls are studying at uni and have a job as well, and then plus they're doing their cycling on top of all that. And then of course they've got their as you said, the masters, and we say that with with great compliments to those ladies as well, like Vicky Whitelaw, who are passing on what they've learnt and all of their wealth of knowledge that they've gathered over the years, to these younger girls. And it's that's a fantastic team that they've got together, and I think that's it's a really great thing that they're doing.
They're riding brilliantly as a team, passing on that knowledge, and they're sharing it via Discord throughout this race. So they're getting instructions throughout the race from the more experienced members of the team. And we have Taryn Heather now riding up towards the front. Speaking of women with plenty of experience, she's another one. In terms of the overall standings in the National Road Series, Taryn Heather, she sits in 9th position in the general classification. She finds herself at 1 minute and 24 seconds behind the race leader, Bree Wilson. And once again, Bree Wilson, she hasn't put a foot wrong. She's staying in this front group and she's marking the moves. She can afford to ride defensively because she's got a really handy lead over third place, Nicole Frayne. She's got a 58-second advantage over Nicole Frayne because second place is her teammate Justine Barrow. So it's that third place in the overall standings, which is more of a concern to her than second position in the general classification. Because this format, even on Zwift with the National Road Series, we've seen some really good team tactics from Rock Salt Attacker, making sure that they support each other in their bid for overall success.
Yeah, and the damage really was done in the last race, that week 3, where Hailey Fuller and Bree Wilson really got stuck in, and they really solidified that lead in the championship there. Unfortunately for Hailey Fuller, I think as we mentioned earlier, she did have that technical issue in week 2, which meant she had a DNF in her race. Unfortunately, both in Zwift and in real life, you can have mechanicals and technical issues. And she had that technical issue, which meant she wasn't able to finish the race. So she's out of contention in this series, which is a real shame for her. But the damage certainly was done by Bree Wilson in terms of her sitting with a really, really comfortable lead of 42 seconds at the moment.
It was such a different style of race in the previous one. In race number 3 in the National Road Series, it was a ramble, multiple laps around the jungle, and everybody was riding a mountain bike. This week, it's around the Richmond circuit, which was used for the World Championships in 2015, going in the reverse direction to which the World Championships were held there 5 years ago. Everybody's back on the road bikes. And I'd never really gotten my head quite around the way the format of Zwift made those changes on the bikes. But last weekend, Riana, I did the Zwift Fondo. I did the 98-kilometre one. And in the group that I was riding with, we got to a section that was about 8 kilometres worth of dirt. And my group predominantly stopped for about 20 seconds. They all swapped across to a mountain bike and they kept encouraging me to make the change because it made life a lot easier on the dirt. And they were right.
And have you ever done anything on a mountain bike on Zwift?
No, I haven't. But next time I will be.
Well, I can tell you a little story that our coach actually rode up the other week. He rode up Alpe de Zwift on a mountain bike, and he never again, apparently, because that was a big mistake that he made, because he thought it was, he thought he was being cheeky, and he said, I'm going to be able to do it on a mountain bike, no dramas. It will be no different than a regular bike. And never again. He was regretting that decision for about a week. So yes, it makes a huge difference on a mountain bike.
Good to know. Well, they can turn then your climb, your Friday climb, your regular climb up the Alpe de Zwift into a handicap race. It's weight for age. You put him on the mountain bike, you ride the road bike.
Yeah.
Bingo. You're in with a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Neil Vanderfloog has joined the conversation. Neil Vanderfloog, who's been a medalist at the Australian National Road Championships. His partner, Maddie Wright, she's been in the race. she's out of the race with a mechanical problem. You mentioned it before, Riana. You can have
Oh,
mechanicals,
no.
and on Zwift, you can have technicals.
Oh, what a shame. It is so incredibly frustrating when something goes wrong like that, and there's just nothing you can do. It's just we've all been there, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh, what a real shame for her.
That is disappointing for Maddie Wright. So she's out of contention. And here's Jay Vine next to Bree Vine. So we got the privilege, Riana, early on with around about 40 minutes to go to take a sneak peek into the Vine pain cave. We're both on the bikes warming up, and now it's Jay offering Bree advice.
Yeah, you'd like to sort of be a bit more of a fly on the wall, wouldn't you, in the house, wondering what sort of words of wisdom or words of advice, words of encouragement that Jay gives to Bree. It'd be interesting to sort of know what sort of vibe that she likes when she's racing, and vice versa. Everyone's different. Everyone sort of reacts differently to different people. So yeah, it's great that we get to see this. She looks like she's having fun, I think you can call it. Maybe, I don't know, but it looks pretty good, and she's going for it at the moment. Certainly is.
Yeah, and she's attacking off the front. Well, as is the slogan with Zwift, fun is fast. And that's exactly what they're doing. She's having fun, she's going fast, and Jay is giving the super coach tips from the sidelines. The good news, though, Bree, is once you've got your job done and out of the way, you can swap seats and you can tell Jay what to do. And he's in third position overall in the men's series.
Yeah, she looks, and she's got a smile on her face, or I think that is a smile on her face. And he's obviously giving her some tips at the moment. He's obviously got the phone there, watching along, giving some tactics, and she looks pretty comfortable, as comfortable as you can in a race like this, doing 45 kilometers an hour, sitting at a pretty serious heartbeat, and racing these girls. So it's very much, we're very grateful to both of those guys to give us this kind of access during these races. So it's really, really cool.
What I like about it is she's not racing defensively and just thinking potentially about the stage when she's still racing to win the series, and it's still possible. She's 1 minute and 6 seconds behind Bree Wilson, who is sitting relatively comfortably within this group. But Bree Vine, as soon as this race got underway and they went up the first climb, she went on the charge. It is 16.2 kilometers per lap. It's 2 laps of the course, so 32.4 Ks of racing. They've covered a little over 14. They're getting back towards that start-finish line, Riana. So we're getting back towards the climbs, and I'm anticipating more attacks to come from Bree Vine.
Yeah, exactly right. So they'll be sort of using a few tactics now, because they'll know that they've got to get up those climbs once again once we get back to the start of the second lap. Probably trying to just conserve a little bit of energy in the legs, and just get themselves ready and repositioned to go for those climbs again.
There's another Bree in this leading group. Bree Playell is in this group. She's got the green jersey next to her name. Another one of the youngsters in the race. She's generally been pretty aggressive in this series and also the Shram Send It series. Almost back towards that start-finish line. 15 kilometres covered. So next time we come through here, they'll be able to see the sprint starting to line up. So this is an opportunity for them to take a look at the approach towards the finish line, a dress rehearsal for them and a dress rehearsal for us.
So they're just coming up to the start of the second lap now, just about 1 kilometre left on this first lap. So 1 lap down, second lap just about to commence, and they'll be hitting those second lot of those climbs once again. And as we see, Bree Wilson at the moment, we've spoken a lot about her. We've got Vicky Whitelosh still sitting at the front as well. Chelsea Holmes sitting there nice and strong also. We haven't really spoken much about Justine Barrow. We know that she's very strong on the climbs. We haven't really discussed her too much this morning. We'll see how she goes in this second round of the climbs at the start of this second lap.
That's because every time we've mentioned her on a Tuesday night with the Shram Send It series, we've put the moz on her. I've either picked her or you've picked her to win, and she's been in the minor placings. Trying to take the pressure off her back. This is a look at the approach towards the finish line as we head back towards the chasing group. This is the group that contains Justine Barrow. She is in this chasing group. They've got a bit of work to do to be able to get themselves back in contention. Now we return to the leaders as they make their way through the finish line. 16.2 kilometres down, 16.2 kilometres remaining. The series leader, Bree Wilson, is up the front with this select group. But I'm anticipating, Riana, a big attack to come from Bree Vine, with Jay sitting next to her in the pain cave saying, now's a good time to go.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that little attack that she had just a couple of moments before. You wonder if that was just a bit of a dress rehearsal of what has what we have to come. Just sort of sussing out what the rest of the girls may do or may not do, and then just sort of just sitting back, just assessing what the situation is, and then maybe going for it again a little bit later in this race.
I'm convinced she will be attacking as soon as they get on to the next climb. They're now descending down towards it. All the climbing comes within the first 4 kilometres. There is one pinch which goes towards 15% in gradient, and that is the opportune moment for Bree Vine to launch her next big attack. From what we've seen so far, she is the one that we expect to go once again. Chelsea Holmes is also in this group. She's been aggressive in the Shram Send It series, and she's been good throughout this series as well. And we know that she's pretty aggressive, so perhaps she'll replace Bree Vine as the one to go on the charge. You can see on the left-hand side, that is a look at the times over this climb the last time through. It was Bree Vine who was the quickest, followed then by Bree Wilson, then Vicky Whitelaw. So wherever Bree Vine goes, Bree Wilson will be marking her to make sure that she doesn't get too far away. Because if the gaps start to open up, it's still a long way from the top of the climb through to the finish. And we saw around the jungle in race number 3 for the National Road Series that when Bree Wilson got off the front with Hailey Fuller, she opened up a gap of 45 seconds. So a series advantage can be washed away in just one stage.
Yeah, that's right. And that's exactly what happened last week. As we see some of the girls at the front now, Bree Vine just starting to pull away from this group just a little bit as we start to hit these climbs, as we see now into the house of Bree Vine. She's up and out of the seat. She's really digging in hard, just starting to break away from the group, but the other girls are chasing her down. Vicky Whitelaw there, as we saw earlier on the first lap, and Nicole Frayne, they're going with her. So the girls, as much as she wants to get away from them, they're not letting her as they hit 11% on this climb. So digging pretty deep to get up and over this one.
Bree Vine attacks on the climb. It's got a nice ring to it, but the rest of the peloton, they have responded. They anticipated the move, but she's still forcing the pressure. Bree Vine goes again. Bree Wilson responds, and the numbers are big, up towards 8 watts per kilo. They're really powering across the top of this climb. Bree Vine, she has the polka dot jersey as the queen of the mountain from the previous lap across the top. But Bree Wilson is just letting her know that anything you can do, I can match. It's Bree versus Bree.
Yeah, and they're all forcing the issue now. If you can go, I can go with you. So no one's allowing anyone to get ahead. And they were actually quicker that second time round.
2 seconds quicker. So that warm-up of 16 kilometres has certainly helped. And we saw across the top of the climb, Bree Vine, she went into the Froomy tuck position, just as she did on Tuesday night in the Shram Send It series. Out of the saddle once again, in the pain cave with Bree Vine, as she's pouring on the pressure at the front. Wilson is there on a wheel, so too Nicole Frayne, and Maeve Plouffe from ARA Sunshine Coast is riding brilliantly. Renowned as a track specialist, she is climbing out of her skin to stick with the specialist. Maeve Plouffe is holding on, and she'd be tough to beat in a sprint finish, But will she get there? Because Vine has opened up a little gap and she's used a power up.
Yeah, and she's pushing hard, as we just saw, into the house there, up and out of the seat, pushing up to around 8 watts per kilo. But Bree Wilson is going with her. She will not let her get away. She is stuck to her like a magnet. Bree Wilson, she was pushing out 10 watts just then as she went and got up and over that last climb. And it was actually Chelsea Holmes that took out that one. So these girls, they are sticking like glue to each other.
It's a very select group at the front. Maeve Plouffe, Bree Wilson, Nicole Frame. And it's Bree Playal, another one of the Brees who we have spoken about and how aggressive she is. She was the quickest over the top this time, just ahead of Bree Wilson. There are Brees everywhere, and I might have Camembert with some Pinot Noir tonight to celebrate. This has been a brilliant display.
Yeah, these girls are pushing seriously hard, and you'd think that, like myself, the second time round's never as good as the first, but these girls second time round actually going quicker than the first time round. So really, really impressive. They've learnt a little bit from the first lap, and they're actually pushing each other even harder.
It is sensational. They're flying. The gaps have opened up. It is a small group out in front. Nicole Frame, Maeve Plouffe, Bree Vine, Vicky Whitelaw is there. Bree Playal, who was so good on that previous climb, she led them over the top. It's a group of 6 riders out in front. Well, the good news for Kieran Lewis from Swift, he's tipped Vicky Whitelaw. She's in contention. Bree Hargrave is also amongst the chasing group. Here she is, just a few seconds behind. So we've got another chance for a Bree to get in contention to win the stage. They're everywhere.
Yeah, so these girls have just come, just split away from the last couple of girls now. So they've just had a small breakaway since that second stage of climbing. So there's a couple that have just pulled off the back now. The Hargrave, she's just dropped off the back just slightly. She's about 18 seconds behind this little front group here. So see if they can pull their way back to this front little group. But Bree Vine, she's still sitting strong at the front. Nicole Frame not letting her get away, and Bree Wilson, she's looking very, very strong as well.
This group is working well together. Just one more climb to come before the flat. As heart rates are getting up towards the 170 to the 180 mark, the pressure has really been on. And there's lots of support on the Cycling Australia National Road Series Facebook page and the Zwift Community Live Facebook page for the Step Forward IT Suzuki team, the team of Bree Vine, and they are all convinced that Bree Vine has got the legs to win the stage. We know she's consistent. She's proved that every Tuesday night.
Yeah, and you just get a sense that the pressure, the tension, everything has just lifted in this part of the race. First part of the race, first lap, everything was pretty sort of settled. Everyone was just getting into the rhythm, but certainly this second part of this second lap, I feel like everything has just lifted. They've shifted another gear, and we've just gone up a notch.
And they're on board in Ballarat because not only is Pat Shaw watching, who'll be joining me for the men's race, which gets underway after the women's race, but Dad Dennis is also watching, and he's of the view that Maeve Plouffe is the one to watch in this group. He's been really impressed with her efforts. I think he likes the fact that he's a rider that we know as somebody who is one of the best in the country on the track, and she's contending with some of the best on the road and over the hills, and Maeve Plouffe is in a winning position.
This front group of girls are looking very strong. They're sticking together at the moment. So it really is going to come down to this last little climb and then who can hang on for the second half of this lap. As we saw in the first half of the lap.
Yeah, Maeve Plouffe, she's from South Australia, but she's supported by your part of the world, Riana. She rides for the ARA Sunshine Coast team. That's her in the light bluish colours on the pink bike, sitting in about second or third position. That's where her avatar is. But at the moment, I imagine she's on the kicker, on the tip of the saddle, just waiting for the next 9 kilometres to get done so she can open up her big sprint.
The girls are just sitting quite nicely at the moment. It just seems like they've all just got back into a rhythm, just sort of testing the waters, seeing what everyone else is about to do after we've just sort of had that
Another little
burst of...
Only 6% this one. It's all relative. Yep. And as Bree is still racing, Jay is starting to warm up. The contrast between the hoodie and the fan. One trying to warm up, the other one trying to not overheat.
Yeah. And look at him though, he's got his eyes fixed firmly on Bree's screen, obviously still very much giving her some advice and maybe some strategy about how she's going to finish off this last part of the race, and he has not turned away. So he's getting himself ready for his race, but very much looking and supporting her as she finishes off hers.
It's a good way not to get nervous about your own race, is to focus on your partner's race.
Yeah, exactly. It's as we've sort of said, it's interesting just to watch them on and see how they prepare. We had video on them as Bree was warming up her race. She was in on the bike about half an hour before the race actually started. So, this race doesn't start as the lights go out. It starts very early on, and these girls are getting ready and getting warmed up and getting themselves prepared very much, probably hours before it actually gets going.
And good to see that Henk Vogels is tuning in as well. Henk, who's ridden the Tour de France, he's finished top 10 at Paris-Roubaix. He is part of the ARA Ride Sunshine Coast team, and he is all on board with Maeve Plouffe, and he's convinced that Maeve can get the job done. The chase is on from behind, and the gaps are starting to be closed down. We've seen a few riders potentially coming back into contention. Taryn Heather, Sam Dorita, they're at just 2 seconds behind. They're behind the next chasing group, in fact. They're chasing the chasers. So we've got riders spread all over the course at the moment.
Yeah, so Bree Playell, she's about 20 seconds behind at the moment. But as you said, there's sort of a couple of little groups now just forming, and they're all chasing down each other. But we've still got that main group at the front that are sticking together. They haven't really separated too much as yet.
So this is the lead group. Maeve Plouffe, Nicole Frame. There's a look at Maeve Plouffe, just 20 years of age. She's the rider whose avatar is at the front. We have Nicole Frame, Bree Wilson, the series leader, Bree Vine, who sits in 5th position in the series overall, Vicky Whitelaw, she was the winner of the first race in this series, and she sits in 4th position in the overall standings, and Bree Playell. They're the riders still in contention. The chasing group is then being led by Chelsea Holmes at 40 seconds behind, and she has Taryn Heather and Amber Pate with her, along with Sam Dorita. So they're out of contention. They're racing for the minor placings. Georgia Whitehouse is also in that group. It's amongst the 6 leaders as they're just on 7.3 kilometres to go.
And we've just had word through that I think Robbie McEwen might be watching along on the stream. So shout out to Robbie. Nice to have you watching along with these ladies this morning. So hello, welcome.
I've got a confession to make. I've started reading Robbie's book. I started reading Robbie's book 2 nights ago, and Robbie, the chapter... bit in chapter 2 or chapter 3, might have been chapter 2, and you talk about BMX going to the national championships. The first one in the Gold Coast, which was a 40-minute drive, and the second one going across to Perth. And your dad said, well, if we're going to Perth, we're going to take it seriously. And the training camp with your brother Cameron and Ross, sensational. Loved it. I'm getting stuck into it. It's a fantastic book. It was released a long time ago. If you haven't read it, I'm only a little bit into it, but I can recommend it.
So you've got a live review of the book whilst he's listening and watching. Well done, Matt.
And a bit of support for Riana as well.
Grove, shout out.
Loving you on Zwift.
Hello,
and
Ben.
The supercars. You must be missing the supercars, Riana.
Yeah, it's been tough not having any supercar racing. Obviously, we've had a similar thing to Zwift with our E series running the last few weeks, but yes, certainly very much looking forward to real life supercar racing coming back in a couple of weeks. So yes, everyone's chomping at the bit.
And
So
the
we've
chase is
got
starting to close down, Rihanna.
yes, and we're sort of in a section here where we're getting towards the flat part of the back section of this race. So there is a real chance that this part of the pack, the chaser group, could get nice and close to this front lead group.
Well, last time we took a close look at it, the gap was 41 seconds. Now the gap is 26 seconds, and it is coming down like a haircut when you first enroll into the army. It is buzz cut style, tumbling away. The leaders, it looks as if they've just eased off a little bit. They're starting to think about the sprint finish, but they might not have it all to themselves because the chase is on in earnest. Good job being done by the women behind.
Yeah, working together, and they know that they've got a carrot dangling in front of them, and they can sense it. They certainly will be able to see these ladies in front. They will see the numbers starting to tumble, and they'll be working away, chipping away at this gap, trying to get to these ladies in front.
That's one of the great things when you're racing on this format. Vicky Whitelaw in the leading group, you can see what is happening elsewhere. When you're out racing in the real world, you don't necessarily get those real-time updates like you do here. But that gap, it's still coming down. It's back to 26 seconds. We're just over 5 kilometres remaining. The lead group of 6, they should have enough to hold on and dispute for stage honours. Importantly, though, in the overall standings, Rihanna, for Brie Wilson, she will not lose any ground to any of her rivals. In fact, she's going to find herself extending her advantage. Here's the overall standings. Brie Wilson, she leads ahead of her teammate Justine Barrow, who's in that second group. Nicole Frayne is in this group. She sits at 58 seconds behind in the overall standings. Vicky Whitelaw in fourth position. She's also in the leading group. So too is Brie Vine. It's then Brie Hargrave, who sits in sixth position overall. But she finds herself on the back foot today in the chasing group, so she's losing more ground in the general classification in the race for National Road Series honours. 5 kilometres to go.
Just ticked over these girls, so they're looking strong up the front. As you said, we've got Brie Wilson sitting really, really comfortably. She's looked really comfortable throughout the entirety of this race. Vicky Whitelaw sitting there as well. We've discussed her at great length. She's been strong across the entire series, so it's going to come down to a real sprint towards this last few kilometres remaining in this 32.6 kilometre race. And just as we say, these girls, it just seems like they're starting to really pick up the pace a little bit. They know they've got that chasing group behind them. They're probably not going to get to them, but these girls, they've got to start to put the foot down, get on the gas, and they've just got that last final part of this race. They know it's quite flat, and it's going to start to lift.
Nicole Frayne is doing that. The tempo is picking up ever so slightly, but the gap is down to 22 seconds. Importantly for that chasing group, they can't back off the pedals because they need to think about the overall standings in the National Road Series. On this format on Zwift for the Australian National Road Series, it is done on time. A general classification, just as we see in a tour, it's not a point series such as the SRAM Send It series that we have each Tuesday night. So limiting the losses is important for a high placing in the overall general classification for the riders in this second group. Hence, they are not letting up with the chase. We're back with the leaders. And this is Maeve Plouffe at the front. And I know, Rihanna, she's got lots of support from the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, well, it was picked quite early by a few people on our social media that, they tipped her to take out honours this morning, and she's looking very, very strong up the front there. So we'll certainly keep our eye on her as she remains in this top group. She's looking very good, and it's going to be amongst these couple of girls at the front as they're starting to sort of really make an attack now, these girls at the front, but they're not letting anyone get through. As soon as one goes, another goes. So it's going to come down to the wire.
And we're back on board with the Vine show as we're seeing the attack come from Bree, the reaction coming from Nicole Frayne, the response with Bree Wilson. This is really aggressive. None of the riders in this lead group, with the exception of Maeve Plouffe, noted for their sprinting prowess, so they're just trying to tear each other's legs off. What a hospitable way to spend a Saturday morning.
Yeah, they're not letting anyone go. We just saw Bree Vine there. She just went for the attack, but then as soon as she goes, the rest of the girls follow. So it's just going to be a case of who can hang on the longest.
And Jay is getting a little more serious. He's now warming up with the hoodie off, and he's watching and supporting, and he's also sharing on Instagram. He's all over it. Who says men can't multitask, Riana?
He's doing incredibly well, and as we've sort of said the whole time, he has not taken his eyes off Bree Vine's screen. So incredible support by the husband there within the household of the Vines. Very, very awesome to see that. And these girls once again back in a very, very tight bunch. There's no one that is able to get a breakaway. So.
And that little flurry of attacks, we've seen the advantage for the leading group. It's extended back out to 31 seconds. So they've well and truly re-established themselves. The decision for stage honours will be between one of these six. Bree Wilson, who is the series leader, Nicole Frayne, Bree Playell, Vicky Whitelaw, a pre-stage favourite, Bree Vine and Maeve Plouffe from ARA Sunshine Coast, who sits in second last position in this group. A little over or just on 2 kilometres still to go.
And 2 kilometres doesn't sound like a lot, but at the end of a race, when you've already expended all of your money, 2 kilometres can be a long way to go, a long way to travel, a long way on empty legs. And they've just got to find whatever's left in the tank. Maybe just one more little attack, maybe one more little bit of momentum left to get a breakaway, and see whoever's got the most left.
And I wonder what we'll see team tactics-wise from Sydney Uni Staminade. They have Nicole Frayne and Vicky Whitelaw in this group with 2 kilometres remaining. Less than that now, in fact, as they're about to make the right-hand turn. This is a team that has worked so well together throughout the series. They're sitting at the back of the group. Vicky Whitelaw, a pre-stage favourite, but does she share that experience with Nicole Frayne and try and set Nicole up for the victory?
And they've been a really strong team throughout the entire series. They've had really good numbers. They've had really good results for their entirety of their team and the entirety of the series. So I think they are going to be the ones to watch as we go into this final kilometre of the race.
Inside 1K to go. Nicole Frayne has been a big player throughout this series, riding for Sydney Uni Staminade. She's got Vicky Whitelaw, who was the pick from Kieran Lewis to be able to win the race today. And we're seeing the first big move, and the attack is coming from Nicole Frayne. She's going early. There's more than 500 metres to go. The reaction coming in red, that's the series leader. Bree Wilson is trying to stick with her. Now the power up also being used by Maeve Plouffe from ARA Sunshine Coast. Maeve Plouffe moves to the fronts. She's renowned as a track specialist, but she's got more weapons than that. She survived the climb. She's charging towards the finish. She's opened up a handy gap. She's still holding almost 8 watts per kilo. The finish line is within reaching distance. Bree Vine is still chasing. Plouffe is fading ever so slightly. One more bid for victory. Plouffe can hold on, or can she? Because the power-ups are in play just behind her. This will be tight. Vine, no, it's Plouffe who holds on. Bree Vine in second position, followed by Vicky Whitelaw. That was brilliant.
That was amazing and just got it done by the skin of her teeth. Awesome result by Maeve Plouffe.
Well, Dennis Shaw was on board early, Pat's dad. He's up in Ballarat. We've had Henk Vogels watching saying, Maeve, she's got this. And he was right. She was the one rider in this group that you wouldn't have thought of as being able to cope with the climbs, but she has. Fantastic win. Don't know about you, Rihanna, but I thought maybe she went a little early in the sprint. I was wrong. She was right.
I was a little bit nervous for her. I actually was holding my breath just at the very end. I thought she was going to get done by Brie Vine. She was coming in at red hot, just by the skin of her teeth. She held on, but yeah, really exciting to watch the end there, to see her use her power ups just absolutely perfectly. Exciting finish for the girls, and yeah, really cool to see the strategies come into play. And she went pretty early. She had to hang on. But she was strong. She was confident in her ability, and as we watch the replay here, she went first. But and as you can see, Brie Vine just trying to hunt her down. But yeah, she got the job done, and yeah, congratulations to Maeve.
Brie Vine was closing so quickly. I imagine for Maeve Plouffe, that last 100 metres felt really, really long. And you can see the power up in play from Brie almost.
Almost got it done. Could you imagine Brie watching on, just trying to chase her down? But yeah, we just got information through 212 maximum heart rate for Maeve Plouffe. So she was certainly working absolutely to the maximum level of her. And yeah, that's really, really impressive, just at the total limit of her ability there.
Yeah, that 212, that is through the roof. So that ability to push yourself and take yourself all the way to the edge. Fantastic performance by Maeve Plouffe to win the stage. Stage 4, race number 4 in the Australian National Road Series on Zwift. Importantly, this avatar that we're looking at now is the avatar of Brie Wilson. She was 4th today, but she lost no time in the overall standings. In fact, she extends her advantage in the overall standings because Justine Barrow, who started the day in 2nd place overall, wasn't in that group. So Brie Wilson can be really happy with how things have panned out for her today.
Yeah, she'll be stoked with that result, just knowing that she's been able to hold on to that series lead nice and comfortably. She got the job done a couple of weeks ago and been able to hold on to that lead. So yeah, she'll be really impressed with that result.
The results aren't quite coming up at the moment. So we've got the result that we know for the stage win, but still calculating out what the general classification is, with still 2 races to come in the series. We've got the Bologna time trial to come and then the final stage as well. They have 2 weeks before the next race, Rihanna, but I'm sure we're going to see most of them, particularly Brie Vine on Tuesday in the Schramm Sendit series.
Yeah, and she got that victory in the last week. You know, we know we've spoken about how she's been second every week, but finally got the gold medal around her neck last week. So she'll be incredibly happy with that. She still leads that series. So yeah, she's been doing very, very well across both series, and she'll be looking to get maybe another one next week.
So she leads the Schramm Sendit series. Rihanna or I will be calling that race on Tuesday night. You can join us for live coverage of the Schramm Sendit series on Tuesday. It was Maeve Plouffe who took out the stage win today. Brie Wilson leads the series. So Tuesday for you and I to catch up again as we call the Schramm Sendit series, and then a fortnight for the next round of the National Road Series.
Yeah, we'll be there Tuesday. Look forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Riana Crehan. She'll be joining me on Tuesday and then in a fortnight on the Saturday for the National Road Series. Short break, then I'll be back with Pat Shaw for all the action from the men's race. Hello and welcome to the Australian National Road Series. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by Pat Shaw. Pat, we've just seen the women's race taken out by Maeve Plouffe. A sprinter survived with the climbers. The men are about to get underway at Richmond. 2 laps of the course, and it could be a similar scenario. Climbers trying to distance the sprinters, but one of them might have the legs to hold on.
Oh, I think a couple of fast guys will make it to the end, but potentially our man Graham Grizzly Frizzly, as he's known now across the social media, thanks to our man Wes Sulzberger at Zwift. He's taken on that hashtag, should I say, and that's what we'll be calling him for the coming future. I think he's a big chance today, and Maeve Plouffe gives me more reason to believe that he can achieve that. And I like the way that Maeve finished off that race. She peaked out at 212 beats per minute, because that's what it takes. A tough course, Matt. Very little flat. When it's flat, it's still false flat, and that's potentially why Peter Sagan was so successful on this course.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, isn't it? That this is the course that Peter Sagan won on in 2015, but we are going the opposite direction. So the climbing comes at the start as opposed to the end. The last race in the National Road Series, race number 3, was around the jungle. We saw everybody racing on mountain bikes there. Tom Benton got the win ahead of Graham Frizzly. It was then Liam White in 3rd position. But in terms of the overall standings, the general classification, it's Alistair Christie Johnson who leads. He's locked on the same time as his teammate, Ben Van Dam. And it's then Jay Vine, who is in 3rd place with Tom Benton in 4th position. And Tom in 4th place is still only 4 seconds behind the top of the leaderboard. So it is really, really tight in the overall standings.
And certainly today, like every week, plays a pivotal role in how that's going to shape up before our next stage, which is in a fortnight's time, and that's the Bologna ITT. And that's the big race that's I've been licking my lips since the beginning of the series. Once I saw it on the plan, I have to admit that, because I think that's really where we're going to see the great separation. But we might also see some big surprises, because a time trial on an indoor trainer versus a time trial outdoors with wind and aerodynamics important, we could see some very interesting results. As we see now, this is your overall GC in the National Road Series Invitational event on Zwift. And a couple of sneaky ones in there too. Cam Roberts, keep an eye on him. Harley Moore, he's been really good. And Tyler Lindorf, he's going to time trial really well in that Bologna time trial, Matt. And they're out of the pens now, and it's going to be straight out of the guns, as we expect in every single event we've broadcast this winter.
And Tyler Lindorf in 10th position overall. It's worth noting he's still just 11 seconds off the series lead of Alistair Christie-Johnson. So this men's series is really, really tight. Whereas in the women's series, Bree Wilson, she's got a commanding lead because of her performance 2 weeks ago. And the results have just updated on Zwift Power. So as the men get underway, confirmation of the top three in the overall standings in the Women's National Road Series. It is Bree Wilson who leads by 1 minute ahead of Vicky Whitelaw. Nicole Frayne is at 1 minute and 1 second behind. It's then Bree Vine, who is an extra 3 seconds behind, so she's at 1:04, followed then by Bree Hargrave. That's the top five in the Women's National Road Series. As the men get underway, and Pat, no surprises, it is a rapid start as they descend towards the first climb.
Yes, it's a common theme every week. But whilst we're just quickly touching on the results that you were going over there, Matt, there's a couple of riders I'd just like to highlight a little bit, because a lot of the time we don't look below the top 10, but just at 16 seconds behind or a little bit more was Francesca Sewell, just a junior rider still. So that's a pretty impressive result as well. So a big shout out to Francesca for finishing in the top 20 and just 17 seconds behind the winner, Maeve Plouffe, today. So, but we have some very, very impressive young riders in this race as well. And we've already spoken about Graham Frisley, who's an up-and-coming rider, but certainly Pat Eddy's been very good. Our man in Ballarat, Jesse Norton's been very strong. And we talked about Harley Moore earlier, and he's been very good as well. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers that we see one of those younger riders, maybe even Aidan Sinclair, jump into that top 10 today on this really difficult course and show some of these National Road Series teams that don't particularly have maybe some of these athletes subscribed up for next year to really consider them, as the future for these riders is incredibly bright.
Well, Wes Salzberger has chipped in with the conversation on Zwift Community Live and on the National Road Series Facebook page. And he's asked you, Pat, the question, and me, who's the person to beat today? Who wins?
I think it's a difficult one, but I really do like Graham Frisley, and as Wes hashtag unleash the beast. Yeah, I think he's a big chance. I think for his effort in the jungle was just so impressive, and he's shown that his form is continuing. But don't be surprised that someone flies the coop a little bit like Maeve Plouffe did. And that could be someone like a Ben Hill, maybe a Liam White from Oliver's Real Foods. They're a team I really enjoy following in the National Road Series. They've been continually developing as a team, and they've got immense support from the Oliver's Real Foods franchisees. So it's fantastic to see the Oliver's Real Foods team do so well, particularly in Australia, but also in Asia. And I know that they've got great support, and well, a big shout out to their outlets that have reopened now for service across Australia in all of their petrol stations. So get out and support the people that support the cyclists.
Okay, Pat. Well, Wes asked you who was going to win, and you've just named half the field. So you did go early with Graham Frisley. I like your thinking. We can't have the same. So you stick with a sprinter. I think Jay Vine is going to get it right today. He's paid really close attention to the women's race. He knows how to get the timing right on Zwift. There's your man, Nick White, in Ballarat with the Luft and the cap on. He's a contender, but I'm going to go with one and one only. Unlike you hedging your bests all across the field, I'm going to stick with the Vine Show and Jay Vine to get the job done today.
Yes, well, Matt, I've asked you on many occasions in real life racing to predict a winner in early stages. It's difficult. There's so many good riders too. And look, you're going to have Alistair Christie Johnson and Ben Van Dam, who sit first and second on the general classification, also very eager to get in a good result. But the biggest and toughest part of this course comes early. So who's got the desire to take the risks to split the field early? That'll be what really brings us out. On about midway through the course, we'll know who's come with the legs today. And we've got to also remember we're starting to get a month to 6 weeks into a really strong race campaign for a lot of these riders who have also been doing the SRAM Send It series on a Tuesday night. And it can't be underestimated the fatigue that also goes into that. For an hour's racing, a lot of these riders are sitting at threshold for that entire hour, and that does take its toll mentally and physically. So I think there could be some riders that start to step up over the next 3 stages of the National Road Series and also over the coming weeks in the SRAM Send It series that maybe we haven't seen too much of. And that's why I sort of brought Ben Hill up as a prospect to do that long-range sprint on the finish today.
And we're already seeing a selection at the front, 35 riders in the group. Joe Cooper has got the King of the Mountains jersey next to his name, having flown up that first climb. But what about the winner of the previous round, Tom Benton from Inform Make? That was a really impressive performance for him to get the win in race number 3 ahead of Graham Frisley. And he's got a strong team, and we've certainly seen the Inform Make team ride brilliantly, and particularly their man who won on Tuesday night, none other than Mr. Attack and No Sleep, Mark O'Brien.
Oh, Mark O'Brien, that was a phenomenal win. And you know what? I actually think that that was the best win that we've seen so far in the series across both the National Road Series and SRAM Send It series. Checking in with the white cams, and they are both very, very concentrated, and they both look at this as an opportunity today. Last round, Liam was quick to the line. He didn't really use the aero power up to perfection. He still had a couple of seconds left in the tank, and he just missed out. He was about a bike length behind Tom Benton, and we must announce that. We must make a fact of that because Tom Benton's victory was a brilliant one.
What I really liked about the view inside the White Pain Cave, inside the garage, we saw a couple of key items hanging up in the garage. In the background behind Liam White, we saw an old track bike, and just hanging above Nick White's head, we saw the whippersnipper. It's got everything.
Yeah, they're on. Yes, they're on some acreage, so they need all the goods. And but I can vouch for this. I don't think they get that whippersnipper out too much, the two boys.
Well, the next round after this, on a fortnight's time, we have the Bologna course, which you've spoken about a lot, and the individual time trial. That can be the real separator in this National Road Series on Zwift.
Oh, 100%. It's the stage that everyone's been watching, but I can tell you there's been a lot of riders really, really concerned about today's stage as well, because as you saw in the women's race earlier, it can split up quite early. We're seeing aggressive racing here from Harley Moore early on. He's been really good in the series so far and across all of the series, so even the SRAM Send It series. But as I was saying, Matt, you can easily lose 35, 40 seconds on today's stage, and really that's going to be difficult for a lot of the riders to make up. But I think that as far as teams are concerned, next round is a really good talent ID round. It's going to show you a rider that can produce really good power and also perform a good time trial, and then they can work on those technical aspects. Aerodynamics and positioning on the bike, you can work with that, but it'll at least show them the capacity of the riders. So some surprise packets pop up in the top 20. I urge the teams to contact those riders and try and start to windle out some way of getting them on board and finding out more about them.
Yeah, that round at Bologna, that is the ultimate engine test. In terms of power-ups, we've spoken about these a lot, particularly on a Tuesday night in the SRAM Send It series. Shane Miller has just posed the question, what about a whippersnipper power-up, courtesy of the Whites? What would that provide you with?
I don't know. Maybe some propeller speed from behind, but yeah, Shane's always got some nice intuitive ideas, and maybe he can come up with a new power up that they can put on Zwift. But today, it's definitely the aero power up you're fighting for at the finish line, and you know, Brevine nearly executed that to perfection. I think that she was quite surprised by how early that Maeve Plouffe went, but that was why she won. It wasn't so much the aero power-up. It was more how early she went. It was unexpected. And I think you need to make a similar move today in the men's race, just 100 metres later, though.
Yeah, it was really close. It was impressive performance. And I think that Jay could get it right today. And never mind, at the front, we've got a group of around about 35 riders. There's Jay Vine, quick up the climb, as we'd expect. And I think he will attack next time up the climb. As Bree just pokes her head into the camera, as Jay is out of the saddle and putting some pressure on early on this climb. It's 32.4 kilometres this race. They haven't covered 8 as yet, and already Jay is throwing down the pain.
Yes, and he's stretching this field out, and it's interesting to see one of the young riders we spoke about early, Pat Eddy. He's right up there for inform. His teammate won the last round, Tom Benton. He's in about 8th position there. Peter Dawson's young man back there in 10th. And for those who don't know, when I mentioned Peter Dawson, obviously Olympian and gold medalist in the team's pursuit, world champion as well, and what a phenomenal individual and team's pursuitist he was. And his son has been absolutely flying in the series, but he's also been flying under the radar a little bit too, Matt, because we weren't aware of the connection. I think he's just come out of under-19s. He's actually, just gone into under-19s.
Into, I think, yep. I did a ride on Zwift and Zoom with Peter Dawson a couple of weeks ago, courtesy of Graham Brown. We've been doing a regular Friday ride that's got Zwift and Zoom coming together. And Smokey, Peter Dawson, Olympic Games gold medalist in the team's pursuit from Athens, was on that ride. And his son is just kind of doing it of his own accord. It's not as if Peter has pushed him at all into cycling. If anything, he's kind of like, well, if you want to do this, you've got to do it with your own motivation. He's not wanting to coach motivation. It's up to you. And his son is really getting out there and doing it very, very well. Clearly, Pat, the genetics are pretty good.
Yes, no, Jordan, he's really impressive, and he's impressed me through the junior series. I think he actually was just checking, Matt, and it is under 23 is his category on the National Road Series Invitational Zwift race. So he's in the under 23 category, but he certainly has been very good. Liam, he's texting through his team, going through Oliver's Real Foods Discord account. Guys, looking good. I think that'll be the message at the moment. He sits on the front of the group. Ben Van Dam, second on the general classification for Bridge Lane, accompanied by Joe Cooper and Jordan Dawson. I think he might have got a little bit extra motivation there from being called out, Matt Keenan. And in fairness, we should have been speaking about him in past weeks, because I do believe 2 races ago in the National Road Series, he did finish in the top 10 there also.
Yeah, he's been good. We're keeping a very close eye on him now. I like that texting from Liam White. You can almost tell somebody's generation based on the way they text. I see my dad with the phone out texting. He's 82 years of age, and it's the 1-digit look away from each letter that gets inserted into the phone. And then you get to somebody that is born post the 1980s, and it's thumbs everywhere at reasonable speed. And then somebody born in this century, it is fingers going at a speed where you need to actually film it in slow motion to watch them. They're going that quickly. It is a real insight into your generation, how quickly you can text type on a telephone.
Yeah, so there's our mechanic at the shop when I'm typing the messages or emails on the phone. He said, "There's no way knowing that makes sense." And I'd say, well, there's autocorrect. Autocorrect makes you see good, makes you seem good. It's Cameron Roberts right up there as well, Matt Keenan. And it's interesting because he's still just sitting thereabouts, and he's been good at that in the past. And I'm just waiting to see when he does hit his straps. I mean, I've spoken about half the field. Let's talk about all of them. So Cam Roberts, he's definitely a chance on today's course.
Okay, well, Shane Miller, he's got another suggestion for a power-up on Zwift, and this is one that you can relate to. He's in Ballarat now, Shane Miller, and he said it's the Ballarat Icy Road power-up. Everyone else slips out while you attack.
Oh, yeah, the old black ice power-up. I like it.
Very good. Very Ballarat. We can maybe just insert that for the National Road Series one.
Yeah, the black ice, it's almost like Mario Kart. You can throw it ahead or behind. So, if someone's making a breakaway, chuck the black ice and they don't have traction, you can catch back up maybe. No, he's good, Shane Miller, and it's great to have him on watching the stream. And obviously, he's got his infamous GP Llama YouTube channel, and he covers a lot of the hacks of how to do well in Zwift racing and how to set up your smart trainer. And that. So if you are thinking of getting involved in racing on Zwift or even riding on Zwift, then he's definitely a channel to check out. Right now, about 40 riders make up this group. Yes, well, for many
40
too,
riders in
Matt
this front group.
Yeah, and
just
Tom Benton, who won 2 weeks ago.
Sorry, mate, but Nicole Frayne, she's just finished the women's race. She's tuning into the men's race. She's reasonably content with how things have gone in terms of the general classification. She would have liked to have picked up the win, and there's the post from her. Third overall, Vicky up into second place, so a good result for the team. And their team, Sydney Uni Staminate, they've ridden so well together as a team, Pat Shaw. And we saw that in the men's race in the previous event for the National Road Series, race number 3, with Inform Make, lots of attacking from Mark O'Brien, and then Tom Benton finishing it off for that team.
Oh, well, it's always it's perfect for a team when you've executed a plan and then come out with the victory. And we have seen it several times in the series. As we look at Cam Roberts right now from GPM Stools Racing, he's level 43 on Zwift. He won the SRAM Senate Series last year. He's done over 18,000 kilometres on Zwift, and he certainly is a rider to watch. So that's a great time to highlight him as he sits about 8th in the peloton right now. We have seen it highlighted in the series already in men's and women's. Sydney Uni Staminate did take first, second, third in the very first round. In the KOM after party in New York City, it looked like Jay Vine would take the win in the men's race, but then it was Bridge Lane who ran 1, 2, 3 and took out the complete podium finish there as well. So it has been quite popular that when a team takes out the victory in one of the stages, they certainly have other riders staggered amongst that top 5 as well. So more aggressiveness here from Jay Vine, your man for today. Mind you, I'd hate to say it, but you have been commentators' curse really strongly recently, most notably in the women's SRAM Senate Series on Tuesday nights.
For those old enough to remember, I have been Zwift's equivalent to Lou Richards and the Kiss of Death. If I mention your name as a contender to win, I apologise. Jay, good luck.
Yeah. Yes, no, it has been, unfortunately, and normally you're right on the money too, but this is a significant move. Jay Vine's not backing off now. He's really comfortable in the live cam as well, so that looks good. Joe Cooper moves to the front. He's trying to up the pace. He's now at 4.8, nearly 5, now 5 watts per kilo, so he's matching Jay Vine. Oh, well, this is an interesting move early on by Jay Vine. He'll go not too far up the road, and he'll start to see whether someone else wants to attack across. This aggression is interesting, and this shows that he's obviously got a lot of confidence today.
He's got a 5-second gap. He sits in third position in the series overall, 4 seconds behind the series leader, which is Alistair Christie-Johnson, and Ben Van Dam are both locked together on the same time, 4 seconds ahead of Jay Vine, who's on the same time as the winner of the last race, Tom Benton, with Cooper Sayers another 1 second back. So it's just 5 seconds separating the top 5 in the general classification. But the virtual race leader is Jay Vine, as he's on the charge 6 seconds up the road. But note, second position leading the chase, it's Alex Lack from GPM Stilts. He skipped Tuesday night the SRAM Senate Series, had a lighter day, did some testing the following day. He might have some good legs for this morning's race.
Yes, well, Alex has been one of the riders that have come more to the forefront of our mind in this series, and that's what's been one of the good things about it. He's got a great mountain bike pedigree, and he rides on the same team as Cam Roberts, so he'll be looking to assist him there. But I think if we check the series leaderboard, he's right up there as well, at least in the top 15 would be Alex, like if not in the top 10, and he has been very strong. So he's not in the top 10 as we now see. Beautiful timing there for the GC ranking overall. And Jay Vine, should I say, heading off the front. Now, an unusual sort of a tactic for one of the favourites in real life racing, but this could be what does make the difference towards the end.
He's putting plenty of hurt on. As you can see, he's just 4 seconds off the series lead, but he's been reeled back in. It's now down to just 2 seconds, and they're making the right-hand turn. Can see the finish line from here. They certainly would in real-life racing. And I'd be of the view, Pat, if I was Jay Vine, sit up, recuperate, get ready to go again. And as we go into the Vine Cave for the Vine Show, Jay does exactly that, takes a drink. He's now in the peloton. Time to recuperate. He'll go again on the climb. I am convinced.
Yes, well, there's a lot of area towards the back end of this course, though, Matt. The three successive climbs right in the back end really do make it an incredible opportunity to split the field. And maybe he's just trying to soften everyone up at this moment. It didn't look like he was full gas there at all. He was just sort of opening up the cylinders, got out in front, then was riding tempo. Hence why the group's brought him back, and it's Finton Conway now that's on the front of the peloton. Ben Van Dam follows him through, then Jordan Dawson. Cam Roberts right behind him. So strong riders throughout this group, but it's the riders that sit that 14th and 15th that we don't see pop up on the right-hand menu too often that are going to be the ones I think that'll be right at the pointy end when we come particularly to those two back-to-back climbs later in the stage.
And your man is one of them. He's barely been seen at the front. Graham Frizzley. In fact, he's not your man. Wes Solzberger owns the rights to Graham Frizzley as the man for today.
Well, yes, he does. He does. He certainly owns the rights to the name that we have now given Graham Grizzly Frizzley, and I think it might catch on, actually. So we'll see how that all goes. But there's so many good riders in this
strongly.
It's just got a nice ring to it.
It has. There he is. Graham Grizzly Frizzley. He has been a race winner. That was in the opening race. He's been super in the Shram Sendit series. He was second in race number 3 behind Tom Benton. And he is a pick today for Wes Solzberger to take out stage honours. And he's been really quiet, which is really good for his prospects to win the stage. 1 lap down, 1 lap to go. They're descending towards the climb. Who will it be that goes on the charge? Because, Pat, you don't want Graham Frizzley with you at the finish line today.
No, and see, that's the thing is Graham Frizzley realises that he doesn't have to do a great deal. He needs to survive. That's literally the point. And that's what's always great about being quick on the line is that you know that they need to get rid of you, not the other way around. And, in certain races, you might be more aggressive and I'm always encouraging of riders to go out and sort of express themselves a bit in the race. So don't always just sit in and see what happens because you need to learn how to be creative in certain circumstances. But certainly when you're a rider like Graham Frizzley, you don't really need to be aggressive because ultimately it's all about survival. If he gets to the end, probability says he wins more times than he loses. And so that's a great card to have. And he's an incredible asset to the Subaru Giant Racing team. And they've done very well to recruit him across this season.
Yep, he has been sensational. And there's Jesse Fentonby from Oliver's Real Food Racing up towards the front. Unfortunately, Luke Cridland, a non-starter today. And one of the stories sometimes of racing on Zwift, he's a DNS due to an internet dropout whilst trying to join the event. So that's disappointing for Luke, but he is tuning in to watch the live broadcast on Zwift Community Live and the National Road Series Facebook page. Onto the climb now, Pat. It is Aidan Sinclair at the front. The gradients into the double-digit zone.
And Matt, it's great to see the Oliver's Real Foods riders really getting to the front. It's a big shout out to their employee network too, who tune in every week to watch the National Road Series Invitational. So there's a lot of sponsors that are really deep involved with their teams, but it's so fantastic to see that even the employees of Oliver's Real Foods group, they get on board and watch the riders and follow much in the way early in the 2000s, around 2008, 9 and 10, rode for Genesis, and they were a investment company in WA, and they sponsored our team. And when we went across to Perth to see them for the first time, we went into their offices, and they had all of our results from the previous season all written on a whiteboard. So all of the people that worked in the office, they knew all the results. They knew the riders, okay, and they might not know the faces, but they knew what they'd been doing, and they knew what the team achieved. And it really gave us a great sense of belonging to the brand and to the group. And that drove us to be probably one of the most successful teams that ever raced in the National Road Series.
It's great to have that engagement with the sponsor. And Jay Vine, he hits the next climb. Across the top of the previous one, Joe Cooper took the King of the Mountains time. As Jay Vine, as soon as they've hit the base of this climb, he is all in. He is throwing the watts out of the pain cave and onto the page of Zwift for the National Road Series. He's opened up a small advantage. Stenning is doing the chasing, followed by Christy Johnson. Dawson is there as well. Dawson, big step forward for Dawson today. He's riding really well. Vine across the top though, Pat. He's extending the advantage. It's out to 6 seconds.
Oh, he is absolutely playing with them here today, and right now it's all on his cards, all on his court, and he's really putting the hurt on him as well. He's on a mission. Look at him get into the aero tuck. He's seen the speed go over that 58 kilometres an hour, Matt. If you go over 58 and you stop pedaling, you'll go into the aero tuck. That's what he's doing here. Heart rate's dropping, and he's also getting some recovery, and that lead is out to 9 seconds, so he is absolutely flying. Keep in mind that 9 seconds is probably more, because on a descent and in the virtual world, the gap will look smaller. It's the same as when you're on the flat. Then once you hit the climb, that gap really does open up. So he's got a good lead here, and he'll tell you what, he's on a mission today.
Well, his partner, Brie Vine, she's not only supporting him in the Vine household, but also online. And she's thrown plenty of support behind Jay. He's been reeled back in by this group, though. So he's been caught once again. And it's still a relatively big group, Pat.
Yes, there's quite a lot of riders here. And what we actually have seen today that I don't really recall seeing as much or as frequently in the other stages is each time a rider's going off the front, in particular it's been mostly Jay Vine, but also earlier when Harley Moore went off the front, it was the riders from Bridge Lane. It was Dinham that went to the front, Ben Van Dam and Joe Cooper. They've been doing the most of the chasing, and also the Oliver's Real Foods team. They've got great numbers here. They've been going to the front and doing the chase as a collective. We haven't really seen that so far in the series.
Another guy to keep an eye on in this one, Pat, is Craig Wiggins. He's from Western Australia. He rides from the St. George Continental team. He's one of, I think, 5 kids, maybe 6. He's the only boy, the rest of them girls. And he cuts a deal with a couple of his sisters. They go and they race in Perth on the track. And the deal is he'll build their track bikes for them, put them together, and they clean his room. It's part of the deal that he cuts with them. He's not that keen on cleaning up his room, which I totally understand. So he says, okay, I'll organise a track bike, you clean the room. And it works well.
Well, as long as they're all in agreement, that's all that matters. Well, this group is now dropping down in numbers, Matt. There's only 27 riders, should I say. It's Jay Vine who is policing the group, is the term we would normally use in real life racing, and that is where you're sitting at the back, just making sure you're monitoring what's going on with the rest of the group. This is a small lull here right now, 200 to 300 watts. So it represents about 3.5 watts per kilo for most of the riders. And I've got to say, Bill Simpson, this is a big ride from him as well, Matt. Haven't seen a lot of him this series, and it's not notably a course that normally would suit him. But I've got to say, one thing that probably lets Bill down in real life racing is his bunch position and his ability to ride in the wind. So this is a good show of what his abilities can be on the road, noted for more of the track racing for him.
Here's a look at the teams that are in the series. The Bridge Lane team, they sit in the top of the general classification in terms of the individual standings. They sit in second place in the team's classification. It's Team Aero that lead that classification overall. Oliver's Real Food Racing, they're always easy to spot in the green colours. What they've always got in this series, and they've had for the last year or two in real life racing, is strength in numbers at the front. The team is getting better with every season that they've got on the road.
Oh, for sure. And that's the one thing I've got to say that has really developed in the National Road Series over the years is that teamwork. And it's really quite strange that it's taken so long for teams to work that out, because obviously the best teams, what do they do best? They work together. They control together. And you'd think it'd be contagious through the series, but it really hasn't been in the past. As we see one of the strugglers,
Alex
he's
Lack.
making his way back.
Alex
one
Lack,
of our favourites,
Kiwi.
Alex Lack. Yes, he's a strong rider, and we really do like what he brings to the racing. And for mine, it's got to suggest that he had some form of issue, because he's riding the bunch back fine here. He doesn't look like he's in great difficulty, and this is an interesting one. So Lack, he did get dropped there. He was at 20 seconds down only moments ago, Matt Keenan. So something must have occurred there for him, and he's showing right now that he's got really strong legs, but unfortunately, this effort might be the effort that takes his race away.
And he's on the final climb of the day. Craig Wiggins in the middle of the group. Jay Vine, and you can see him in the bottom right-hand corner. He has certainly been the most aggressive. Doesn't look like he wants to wait for the sprint finish. He really wants to try and go all out and attempt to win solo, take a small time gap, and move into the lead of the overall National Road Series. A few power-ups being used at the front, Pat.
Yes, the lightweight power up, that's 9.5 kilogram drop for 15 seconds, and that's a very smart use of that right now. Alistair Christie-Johnson, the series leader, he's sitting well in the pack. He looks good today. He doesn't look like he's had to expend too much energy, and as I said, the teams have really controlled the situation very well today. This is why I think that we've got so many riders still in contention. But the other thing, I think, I was just having a look, there's a couple of key riders from the top 10 that are not in this group, and maybe that is the motivation for Jay Vine. He's actually riding riders out of the series effectively today on this course.
Thinking long term, we're still 2 races to go after this one. And the one that you keep referring to in a fortnight, the individual time trial at Bologna, that will really suit Jay Vine. That is a big chance for him to go from third place overall into first position in the overall standings, a 4-second deficit behind Alistair Christie-Johnson and Ben Van Dam. But Alistair is pretty good against the clock.
Yeah, Alistair's very good against the clock, and so is Ben Van Dam, in fairness. And there's a fair few riders in that top 15, as we see Cooper Sayers at the front. He sits in top 5 position. He's been a real outshiner on the series so far for the Nero Continental Racing team. But what I was going to also touch on there, Matt, is the development of the Vine couple, let's say. The Vine household has been phenomenal over the past 18 months. And it just shows you they're both motivated athletes, Bree and Jay, and they're obviously co-motivating each other all the time. We see through the live cam the way they support each other in the racing, and they've obviously got a great level of communication, and that just shows how they've developed so well. And Troy and Emily Herfoss is another example of a household that have elite athletes, and Emily Herfoss, the way that she has developed over the past 18 months is phenomenal. And these are some of the best riders that we've got in the country. And so Jay and Bree, they're both right up there. And possibly when the new National Road Series goes back outdoors, they could both win both series as well.
Yeah, and as we get down towards the last 7 kilometres, here's a reminder of the general classification. Alistair Christie-Johnson and Ben Van Dam at the top of the overall standings on the same time. It's a 4-second gap then to Jay Vine and the winner of the previous race, Tom Benton. Cooper Sayers, who's been very active, he's at just 5 seconds behind. So too is stage favourite Graham Frisley. It's then Alistair Christie-Johnson in 7th. Cam Roberts, so consistent in 8th position. Harley Moore in 9th. And Tyler Lindorf, he's in 10th position. He's still just 11 seconds off the lead in the race for the overall standings in the National Road Series. Importantly, Pat, that individual time trial around Bologna, Saturday, the 27th of June. That is a big rendezvous.
It certainly is, but two riders that I see in that top 10 that I don't see in this field at this front group at the moment was Lindorf and also Donoghue. So that's what I'm talking about. That Lindorf is a big one to have out of this group because he was probably the most versatile rider for that course, or the biggest threat to Jay Vine as far as I was concerned. So this is why I think the tactics that Jay has employed is just to make sure that those riders behind at a minute and plus certainly never make their way back. Stretching it out now, Jordan Dawson. He's been our man for the day. We've focused on him quite a bit, and I think he's found some extra legs as well because he is starting to do a very big race here.
Yeah, Jordan Dawson has been really good today. And we've seen Joe Cooper up towards the front. One of your former teammates. He's a guy who's got plenty of horsepower.
Oh, he's got incredible horsepower, and I'd love to have a show reel at some stage of the victories that he's taken in the past because none of them were easy. And I remember the first time I met Joe Cooper, and it was when he was riding for the New Zealand national team that they had produced, and they came out to Australia, and I thought, who is this guy? Like, I've never heard of him. And he'd just been putting the race in the gutter for kilometres after kilometres, not asking anyone for a turn of pace. And then we recruited him to the team. It was the best move that we ever made. He was a great teammate, and did he make some great victories.
And he can really time trial. So he'll be a big threat on Saturday, the 27th of June. We're getting some love coming in for Craig Wiggins, who is in this group as they're inside the last 5 kilometres. Wiggins is a chance. Real Food Racing, they're jumping on board for the Go Green team. They want to see their beans get the biscuit today, and they're a chance. They've got cards to play. Who do you think is the best option for Oliver's Real Food Racing to win today, Pat?
Well, that's a difficult one, but I really can't stray too far from a man, Liam White. I think he's probably their quickest rider on the line, but I'd love to see Conway throw down an attack, throw something out there. Sinclair, who's been really good across the previous weeks, throw something out there. You've got the numbers there. Be aggressive. Throw something out there, force the hand of the others, and help your teammates, because what I'm seeing here is a big group of riders. And not everyone can win. That's obvious. There's only one winner. But there's riders in here like Dinham. There's riders in here like Seawick. There's riders in here like Miller. I'd love to see them have a go. Angus Miller is a great young talent. And notably, unfortunately, don't want to draw too much attention to it, Matt, but he's the young athlete that's crashed twice in the National Criterium Championship in the front group. The kid has got stuff. He just needs to pen it together. Yeah. Matt Zenovich, another one from St. George. He's an aggressive rider. So throw some attacks out there and try and split up this race.
And on the National Road Series Facebook page, the Bridge Lane team have responded to Oliver's Real Food Racing with a wave. And just as that was happening, we went into the garage of the White brothers with one of them, Liam, in the green colours of Oliver's Real Food Racing, and the other one, Nick, in the light blue colours of Team Bridge Lane. So it's good to see them together and friendly rivalry. There they are, bottom right-hand corner. Nick and Liam, brothers, racing against each other in the garage.
Yes, and unfortunately for the two brothers, the smack doesn't stop. It goes on 24/7, so it's not just in-race banter. It's going to go on all day. Miller, we spoke about him. He's taking the punt. He's got the aero power up. He's pushing 7 watts per kilo. He's stretching out the bunch, and this is a very interesting move. What will the bunch do now? Harley Moore, Cam Roberts at the front for GPM Stalls, and Dowd there also for Van Dam Racing, who have 3 riders in here, actually. So they've been well represented. But it's Angus Miller. He's off the front for Sassy. And this is what I wanted to see, Matt. 4 seconds the gap. It's about 3 kilometres to go. This is a smart move, and this could be a winning move.
Well, KOM Financial Advice will be pleased. Great supporters, particularly of the Women's National Road Series, pulled over to the side of the road in Goulburn on the way from Sydney. Driving to Sydney from Melbourne, pulled over to the side of the road to watch the race, and all support for Jay Vine to see if he can get over the line. But it's Miller from the South Australian Sports Institute, who's making the move. And Pat, this is a similar spot to where Jay Vine got off the front on the previous lap, and the gap is about the same. Miller is out to 6 seconds, 5 seconds now. The chase is on from Cam Roberts.
Well, Cam Roberts isn't going to want to do it himself, though. He's there with only one other teammate. Angus Miller, good move. Really like this. He's sitting at 50 kilometres an hour. That's going to suck up the last 2 kilometres real quick. Well, the only thing is the power-ups that come from behind. That's going to make a big difference. We've got Oliver's real. Now we see an attack. So this is from Subaru Giant Racing's Bill Simpson. He's noted for his track racing, but now he's got across to Angus Miller. The 2 young riders, Featon be controlling the front for Oliver's Real Foods. Well, it's an active final kilometres, and it's going to be a hard sprint to the line.
Well, it's Simpson across and away. He's gone by himself. He's opened up a small gap. Miller has been absorbed once again by the peloton. 3 seconds the advantage for Simpson, but 8 watts per kilo. He surely cannot hold that for the next 1,500 metres.
No, but this is advantage Grizzly Frizzly because his teammate's getting the nice set, good lead out, the constant pressure on the front, makes it hard for riders to move up, and the Frizzle's right up there. He's in about 7th wheel, and he's my favourite for the day. Jay Vine, right on him. He knows the wheel to be sitting. Liam White right there as well. Nick White there, the sprinters. Now it's Jordan Dawson, 10 watts per kilo, a kilometre to go. He's going for the long-range attack.
Well, his dad, Olympic Games gold medalist in the team's pursuit, so he's putting that threshold, the ability to ride near the roof, the genetics, to good use. It's Jordan Dawson who's opened up a gap of 3 seconds, but has he gone too soon? Inside the last kilometre, Zenovich is doing the chasing, and you can see the wheels all lighting up. Pat Eddy is in contention here, Pat. He's close towards the front, the youngster from Bendigo.
But Dawson still pushing nearly 10 watts per kilo. It's Zenovich trying to go across to Dawson, and Dawson, for mine, may also have a power-up still in possession. Just 500 metres to go. This could be a great move by the youngster. Now we see aero power-ups. Harley Moore pops it. Alistair Christie Johnson, Tom Benton, winner 2 weeks ago. This is a fascinating finish.
Moore, Sayers, Dawson now getting swept up. It's Harley Moore who is hitting the front. Sayers making his move through towards the front. A big charge from behind.
Frizzly and White.
Frizzly burst through. Frizzly from White and Sayers. Grizzly Frizzly puts a smile on the face of Wesley. It's Graham Frizzly who takes the win.
Strong sprint there and perfectly timed use of the power-ups. Once again, it was Frizzly and White drafting off each other with the multiple power-ups of the Aero Boost. Right here for the Aero. This is the replay. He did have the Aero power-up, Jordan Dawson, and he used it perfectly, but probably when he attacked was the best use. Harley Moore chased across as well. Got on next. Cooper Sayers sitting 5th in the general classification. He thought he had it, Matt. He's rubbing their hands together. Winner, chicken dinner. And then the Frizzly Grizzly came and said, no, I'm hungrier than you. I'm going to eat all of the food today. And with Nick White finishing just behind there at about 1 bike length in second. It looks like Sayers might have been pipped. No, he did hold on. Jay Vine in 5th for mine, with also Harley Moore holding on for 4th position.
So who do you think's happier, Graham Frizzly or Wesley Solsberger, having been on board the Frizzly train as an early adopter from about 18 months out?
Well, I've got to say, I think the Frizzle will be pretty happy with it. But Wes, man, doesn't take a lot to get Wes excited. I reckon he'll be pretty excited too. But Graham Frizzly, what an exceptional ride again. Great to see Nick back up there again. He's had a couple of troubled weeks with a bit of fatigue. But also, what a race. That was the first time we've seen in all the weeks that both Oliver's Real Foods and Team Bridge Lane used their team numbers to efficiency to keep it together. But I tell you what, Graham Frizzly took out the win, but he might have to give Bill Simpson a nice text message and say, thanks for just getting off the front there, forcing the pace, and that allowed him to have almost like a neutral lead-out train. And great victory. Yeah. So many great characters in the finish there, though, too, Matt. Jordan Dawson, also Harley Moore, they all played a part in that final kilometres, and I think that was one of the most exciting finishes that we've had.
Yeah, a lot to like about Jordan Dawson today. Special mention for him. Not inside the top three on the stage, but a fantastic performance. The Zwift Power has updated the overall standings for the general classification. Still locked together on the same time. Ben Van Dam and Alistair Christie Johnson, but it's Ben Van Dam who moves to the top of the table. Alistair Christie Johnson in second spot. Jay Vine at 3 seconds behind. At 4 seconds is Tom Benton, followed then by Cooper Sayers. Next is Graham Frisley, then Harley Moore, Alistair Donahue, Cam Roberts, and Ryan Dowdle, rounding out the top 10 in the overall standings. Regardless of the general classification, Pat, Graham Frisley has won 2 stages of the series out of 4.
And second in another when Tom Benton won just 2 weeks ago. So he has certainly been the most consistent rider across the series. Interested to see how he goes in the time trial. It may not be as poorly as some would suggest just because of the climb. He's been strong on the climbs. He's a great endurance track cyclist. And I'm interested to see how that result plays out in 2 weeks' time also.
The one thing that we've learned throughout this series and throughout 2020 is whatever your preconceived notion was prior to this year of Graham Frisley, scrap it, start again. He's contended with everybody on the climbs. He's had a win, a second, and a win in this series so far, and he's sitting inside the top 10 in the general classification, and he's still 19 years of age.
Yes, and I think for a lot of people that probably are tuning in, maybe they don't know a lot about Graham Frisley, and maybe that's a good thing. As you said, he has sat in the shadows of riders from his club like Luke Plapp and also Sarah Gigante from the fantastic club of Brunswick Cycling. But maybe that's worked in his favour. Maybe that's worked towards his benefit, and certainly I give him all of the benefit for efforts that he's made to get into the current form that he's in, and well done on another great win.
Confirmation of the results on the stage. Graham Frisley taking the win. Nick White in second position. Cooper Sayers was in third place. Then Jay Vine, he was my pick. He ended up in fourth position. Again, the commentator's curse, Pat, you're right. I'm the Lou Richards of Zwift. Harley Moore in fifth position. Tom Benton, sixth. Good consistency from Tom, having won race number 3. It was then Pat Eddy, the youngster, in seventh position. Ben Hill was eighth. Craig Wiggins, he continues to develop. I like the progress of Craig Wiggins. He was ninth. And from Ballarat, Liam White rounded out the top 10.
Yeah, it's a good top 10, actually. It's jam-packed with the riders that we've been watching closely and also been very impressed with. And a lot of riders in the finish that I liked. Angus Miller, young rider. Jordan Dawson, young rider. Harley Moore, young rider. That's fantastic to see them animated. And that's what they should do in the real-life National Road Series as well, Matt. Put yourself out there. Show teams that you have the desire to go for victory. You're not that developed yet. Maybe you're a little underwhelmed at the moment, but show that you've got the initiative. And from a perspective from a rider that raced in the series, I would see that as a major tick to putting you on my team next year.
Yeah, well, Pat, it's been another entertaining race. You'll be back Tuesday for the Shram Send It series.
Yes, for sure.
And then in 2 weeks' time, on Saturday the 27th, you've been talking about this since race number 1, the individual time trial at Bologna.
Oh, yes, I'm very excited for it in both the men's and women's series. And we must not forget the women's race that happened earlier. It was a great move by Maeve Plouffe to take out the victory. Well-executed plan. She went long, 212 beats per minute, Matt Keenan. I would have had to go down to the local emergency ward and get my heart put back in the chest. But fantastic racing across the board again. And chapeau to Zwift for putting on this invitational series, because this has given these riders reason to continue to train and be their best. So when we go back outside and results are important, they're going to achieve them. And it's kept the development of Australian cycling going.
Yeah, the physical intensity required has been huge. As you mentioned, Maeve Plouffe, she won the stage today, 212 beats per minute, her maximum heart rate. Congratulations to her for the win. Bree Wilson leads the women's series. It was Graham Frisley who took out the men's race, but it is Ben Van Dam who leads overall. The next race, the second last race in the National Road Series here on Zwift, is on Saturday, the 27th of June. It's the all-important individual time trial in Bologna. On behalf of Riana Crehan and Pat Shaw, myself, Matthew Keenan, the rest of the team at Zwift, Nathan Guerrera in the background, and Wes Solsberger picking the stage winner today. Until next week, join us then. Ride on.